Call this meeting to order, the Board of Franklin County Commissioners, Wednesday, July 20th, 2022. It's 8:30. Roll call.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Present.
Commissioner Harris?
Present.
Chair Dunn?
Present.
Vice Chair Dickinson? Commissioner Waymire?
Present. If everybody would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. I want to read from the scriptures from Proverbs chapter 20. It says, "Love and faithfulness keep a king safe, and through love, his throne is made secure." So with that, I'd like to pray. Lord, we thank you that you give us the opportunity to know love and to walk in great love. And so I just pray the blessing of God over this commission, that with all the decisions that are made, God, they would be made with the decisions with love in mind, that truly is what is best for this community and all the families that live here and call it home. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Any correspondence or organization? Okay.
No, sir.
Public comment? Okay, a citizen desiring to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so at this time. Discussion is limited to 5 minutes, and the commission will not take action or discuss items at this time. Discussion should be limited to matters of county commission business, and public comment is not permitted in regard to personnel matters or on pending legal matters. Items introduced under public comment may become agenda items at a later date.
David Brown? If you'll come up and state your name and address for us.
My name's David Brown. I am a county resident, 4167 Florida Road. And what I'd like to address, I don't know if you guys have seen the commercial with Newt Gingrich or not, where they give this big spiel about how easy it would be to place a lien on your property through the Register Deeds office. And what they do, they go in and they show you actually how to do it. It's pretty disappointing that they would do such a thing. And then they offer you this insurance to ensure that if a lien is placed against your property, that you will be given notice. Those records are public records. They are basically the county keeps these records of everybody's liens, and as well as mineral rights and such as that. And anyway, so I was doing some work and was talking to Sue McCray about the fact that this was going on, and I guess it's been, she informed me that there had been cases like in Kansas City, maybe even Overland Park area, up in that area, where there had been cases this actually had happened. Now, that's all hearsay. I don't know that actually indeed has happened. But anyway, evidently there is this threat out there where somebody could place a lien on your property and you may not even be given notice of it. So I was asking Sue whether or not the county had ever discussed any of this, and she said yes, that she had thought that there had been some discussion, I don't know, amongst y'all, I guess, concerning this, and but as of yet, nothing had been done about it. So the other day, I was doing some work over in Miami County, and I talked to the Register of Deeds over there. And it's not Katie. Katie just left. She just retired. I'm trying to remember the gal's name, and I'm not doing too good because I'm a little nervous. But anyway, the gal over there who took Katie's place said that Miami County has now prescribed to a program where if you're a member or you have real estate in Miami County, you can sign on to have notice if there is a lien placed against your property. The Miami County has just gotten this program, and so it started me thinking that perhaps Franklin County wants to look in on this program as well. She did give me a brochure on it, which I'll leave with Roy, as he is my commissioner.
Thank you, David. Any other public comments today? Okay, on the consent agenda today, we have claim vouchers of $935,078.20 and a positive tax change order of $19.98 and meeting minutes of July 13th. Entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Chair Dunn.
Yes. Okay, first item up for business, consider approval of the cost of living adjustment, COLA, for Franklin County employees. Amy? Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. So every year, you know that we present a request to approve cost of living adjustments or COLAs for all of our county employees. For 2022, we requested 1.6% for COLAs, and that was pending review of the revenues. Janet's office has reviewed those and determined that we're still within budgetary constraints to continue forward with that. So I'm here to ask for approval for the 1.6% COLAs. Those would be effective with the 6/21 pay period and would go into effect on this July's paycheck.
Like we talked about this several times in the budget talks, so is there any other questions of Amy or Derek or Janet? If not, I'd affirmative motion. I make a motion to approve the 1.6% cost of living adjustment for county employees effective pay period beginning June 21st, 2022.
To approve.
Second. Janet?
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Chair Dunn.
Yes. Thank you, Amy. Davey? Next item up for business is the workstation rotation. Dustin?
Morning, Commissioners.
Order.
This is an item that I didn't get to you last year. It's usually an annual process. Last year with supply chains, pricing, everything else, I just got too late in the year to get this order done and be able to accept delivery in a timely fashion. So this order is a little bit heavier than we've seen in years past. There are 57 workstations total on this. Went through looking at what the needs were over last year and this year to kind of combine those up a little bit. Worked with each one of the department heads that was going to have equipment needs in there to make sure what we were looking at or proposing for them is what they needed. Several of them had additional monitors where they'd want a 2-monitor system. But what we have here is basically a setup where the general fund IT office is going to pay $36,000 and some change of this total for all those additional monitors or anything like that. The individual departments pay that portion. There's also, I believe, 16 systems in there for district court. We usually try to take care of them on our bulk order as well for pricing. We did make 2 significant, or in my opinion, significant changes to our base that brought that total up by about $70 from what we've got in the past, but I am pleased with that price. Those changes are, earlier in the year, we did our renewal on our antivirus software. This is offsetting some of that, so that number will keep coming down. We purchased 300 licenses for our Carbon Black virus protection to cover all of our workstations. As we're ordering workstations, we're putting that 5 years of protections built into the upfront cost of that workstation. So that 300 count will come down over 5 years to 0. As we rotate computers, that will be added on each year. We also added in conferencing monitors on all systems. What we found, obviously, through pandemic, it was a very important function, but since the pandemic, we're finding that there's still a lot of need for video conferencing, and what kind of slipped through my thought process, but from talking with the sheriff, it's become very common in his area, is training. And a lot of that training is requiring video feeds so that the trainer can see you. So we are starting to put these conferencing monitors on all systems as well. So what we have here is a total of $82,296.57 for 57 workstations across a large variety of departments.
Not much of an increase per unit for.
No, it came out to just over $70, $70.80 or
Everything
something like that. I felt like for the additions that was doing to these, it was very reasonable on an increase.
The money from last year, did we just roll that over to a capital fund or something?
It's residual funds in the general fund, so,
Oh, okay. So,
and we usually have enough carryover to,
Now, as far as that, I do have $45,000 in my technology hardware line that the IT portion is paid out of, so the funds are in there in the current budget as well.
Gotcha.
I did go and as I mentioned, talked to each department head, gave them their cost of what additional equipment. They all gave their blessing to move forward as well.
Other questions? Dustin? Affirmative motion would read, I make a motion to approve the purchase of equipment from Dell Incorporated for fiscal year 2022 workstation rotation amount of $82,296.27. Motion approved.
Second.
Janet?
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Chair Dunn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dustin. Next item, to consider approval entering professional service agreement with Witt O'Brien's for assistance with administering the ARPA funds. Derek?
Thanks, Roy. We discussed this briefly last week. As the five of you know, we utilized Witt O'Brien's to help us administer the CARES Act funding. We felt like they did an excellent job with that. That is a very complex subject matter, and they did great. We have good rapport with them. Seeing that we are in possession of nearly $5 million, I think it's important that we have somebody who is reviewing how those funds are spent. I'll tell you, it's not nearly as complicated with ARPA funds. I'm not especially concerned, but I just think anytime you have large sums of money like that, and you've got a firm that specializes in this, I think it's a good investment. The contract in front of you speaks for itself. It has a not to exceed of $15,000. They're not gonna exceed $15,000. I don't think they'll exceed half of $15,000. Even if this rolls over into the next year or the year after, I just don't think they'll ever get there. So I don't view this, when you're talking about $5 million and potentially using a fraction of that, say 5, on a consultant to provide some peace of mind, I think it's a worthwhile investment. So I would recommend this. If you have any questions specifically about the agreement, I would be happy to answer them.
Not necessarily,
Go ahead.
not necessarily what we spend it on, but one of the things I've kind of had in the back of my mind, there's like deadlines you need to do. If you're gonna do this, you need to do this by this date. And that's kind of one of the things I'm like, I hope we did that because, it's important that we did. So, that's the kind of thing that he can help you make
So
sure.
I
that
have
we do.
reoccurring conference calls with groups at the state level from the Office of Recovery. I also stay engaged with NACO, which NACO is sending out all those deadlines to make sure that we're meeting those deadlines. So I've handled the reporting up till now, which is, like Derek said, a lot less complicated than it was for the Sparks funds, because we're reporting directly to the federal government now. So we put in our expenditures right to them, versus filling out the state spreadsheets and the state compiling everything. So there were a lot more details that that the state wanted just for their purposes of tracking and stuff, whereas now the federal government comes straight to us to ask those questions. So it's a lot less complicated this time, surprisingly. So anyway, I have been sending questions to Whit O'Brien as we have them, because we've been in contact with them all along, and they are assisting the state also, so they work with the Office of Recovery. They have a separate division that works at the state level, and then that works with local groups, so it's not a conflict of interest. But like Derek said, they have a lot of knowledge, and it's just nice to have an extra set of eyes on that where we have a direct contact that we can ask questions to.
And if you've looked closely, and this isn't in the actual agreement, it's in their proposal, but they represent, among others, Johnson County, Shawnee County, Sedgwick County, Riley County, Geary County, Graham County. I mean, we're not the only county that is working with Whit O'Brien's. We believe that they are the premier consultant that handles these types of stimulus packages. So very, very comfortable with this.
They're located in Washington DC, so they're right in the heart of it, they're right there, so.
Sounds like you've had good rapport with them before, and I've read several articles and stuff that people that maybe aren't using somebody quite as good, and now they're in a real fix.
They are.
A few counties that didn't use the right people or didn't even use the people. So I think it's a pretty smart way to move, to work with people that work with it on a day-to-day.
And I completely agree. I feel like everyone is looking for some kind of gotcha moment right now, and this is just additional peace of mind that we have. And Janet's been fantastic. I think she stayed on top of this. As she said, Matt Hansen is his name. We've met with him pretty frequently over the last year, but now that we're about to start, I mean, what really was the impetus for this was we want to get this bond defeasance stuff off the ground. And he basically said, okay, well, I want an agreement in place, which I completely understand, so.
Yeah, like I said, I think this gives us peace of mind when we're doing it. A positive response, I make a motion to approve entering into professional service agreement with Whit O'Brien's for assistance with administering ARPA funds.
So moved?
Second. Yeah?
Commissioner Waitmeyer?
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yeah.
Chair Dunn.
Yes. Staff report, you want to start us off there?
Yeah, now that we've got that, once we have that agreement formally executed, we will sit down with Whit O'Brien's. We will talk through the bond defeasance plan. We'll get their blessing, and then we'll be back in touch with David Arterberry, and we'll formally get that off the ground. And that, of course, will all come back to you for your approval. Late last week, I had a phone call with Tyler Ellsworth, who is our bond counsel. I'd mentioned to you that I wanted to seek his help with this transaction in Wellsville, both the ambulance station and the dispatch agreement. We had a productive conversation, him, Christy, and I. He's been in touch with Wellsville's counsel. We've got some conflict waivers that we're trying to get executed. I think just having him help broker the transaction will be best for all parties, but that's certainly in the works, so we're excited on what that potentially looks like. So that's really all I have today.
Good deal. Okay, Kenny Cook, you have stuff for us?
So just had one item that I wanted to get some feedback on. I've had an individual that owns some property in Centropolis area that has come and talked with me a couple times. I think right now there is a current dwelling on his property. There used to be 2 dwellings. And he is interested in trying to build a new dwelling on the property, but through that process, he is primarily interested in the possibility of doing a duplex or triplex or some kind of multi-unit structure on that property. Right now, all of our districts and the zoning regulations only permit for single-family residential dwellings. I would normally say, from a county perspective, I don't know that I would usually say multifamily is something that we would usually get involved with. But with that area actually being on a sewer district, I think it actually brings it into a possibility that it might be feasible to do something like that. And before I gave him sort of any real feedback, I wanted to sort of, I guess, run that by the commissioners and see if you guys had any thoughts on that. At least in my mind, how I would see it if you thought it was appropriate and wanted to move forward with that, was that it would probably be more something that approval of like a special use permit, so that we could still look at it on a case-by-case basis and determine that the infrastructure that's there is actually able to support that. I think we would probably also have to have some conversations on sort of how the funding for the sewer district deals with it, because I think it's based off of property, I think right now, more than maybe units that are actually being served by the district. So we might have to do some changes from that perspective as well. But I wouldn't mind just hearing some feedback from the commission, or if you guys have some questions that you would like for me to do some additional research on.
And we're not asking for a yay or nay today. We just want to know, is there enough interest to at least start down this path and start discussions? It would all come back in front of you, but if it's a hard no, then I'm going to have him waste his time. But
Well,
Go ahead.
in my perspective, anybody wants to build this, just roll the send for it.
Yeah, I'd be interested in having that conversation.
I know the city of Ottawa feels like multifamily is going to be the way to go in the future, but one of the things they said at their meeting on Monday made me question, though, is that when you build a duplex, then it falls under commercial building guidelines, and I didn't know if our inspector and all that would be.
So I think once you get to triplex, it does fall under the International Building Code rather than the residential code. So duplex would typically still be considered sort of on the residential side. But definitely if you went to triplex or more, then there are additional standards and requirements that they would have to meet. And yeah, it's gonna depend on sort of what he wants to do, because I think he's looking at a broad range of options of whether it's one structure or multiple structures and splitting the property or doing some other options, so.
Yeah, I wouldn't, have a big deal with it long, because I know it's gonna go through the whole process.
Yeah.
Just because we think it's something that could go forward, don't mean it will.
Yeah.
And so all we're doing is laying the groundwork for the possibility, not for the actual happening.
Okay.
We know that'll all go through here, with the water and the sewers and the hookups and the property owner and all that. All we'd be doing is just saying, okay, we'll be willing to let you try, to see if it'd work.
well, and just like any other matter, it would ultimately come to the five of you for your approval.
Or it's a single dwelling,
Right.
unless it was,
Yeah.
would just happen, But the biggest thing up there's always been the sewer and the water issues up there, so.
Oh, I agree with that, and I think Kenny's approached this perfectly. I think that the other option is we could look at amending our regulations, but we do that, and then that kind of opens this up, perhaps in areas where it doesn't make sense. But as he said, we've got sewer out there, and so doing this via special use permit, like, it makes perfect sense. Like, we could restrict it however we felt necessary. I think it just gives us so much more flexibility.
And I think the Centropolis is in our R1 zoning district, so that's pretty limited from a countywide perspective. We don't have much other than Centropolis that's zoned that. So, so it would still, I think, leave it pretty limited to R1 zoning that has sewer available, documenting that they have the capacity to handle that. And then, like I said, I think going through that special use permit process, I think would provide us a little bit more ability to just make sure that it fits into the character of the neighborhood and stuff as well, so. Okay.
Is the carpenters ready to start yet? Okay,
Thanks a lot.
thank you. Paul, do you want to give us a little update?
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Paul.
I was not in a bar fight. I went and made a contribution of flesh to the local dermatologist, just like Roy, so.
Yeah, yeah.
He treated you better.
He treated me better, yeah. I think I got off easier than you, Roy. Couple of things I wanted to share with you is, last week, a couple of things happened. We had a moderate income housing reception for developers down at the old post office, partnered with the city. Had around 25 to 30 folks show up. We targeted developers and contractors and had the head of the Kansas Housing Group come out and kind of share with them the tax benefits and the incentive packages that are available for those types of construction projects. So that was a good turnout. He had indicated they've done those meetings at some other towns and locales and had 3 or 4 people show up. So I was real pleased with that. And then as a result, I've got a couple of meetings with some developers that have come out of that, as well as down at City Hall, they've had some follow-up. So continue to work on the housing, which we all know is part of our workforce challenge. The other big event, and David and I and a couple of folks from the city went down to Wichita last week for the summit that the Commerce Department held on the infrastructure money. They call it BIL, B-I-L, Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. And that bill that Congress passed is $1.2 trillion across the country for infrastructure projects. 60% of it's for what they call formula funds, and 40% of it's for competitive grants. And so the formula funds are more direct programs and things that pretty traditional, where the grants are more open and wide, and you can kind of be a little more creative in what you're trying to do within their parameters. State of Kansas on the formula funds has $3.8 billion that they'll be able to allocate across the state. So the areas of focus are water and sewer, transportation, energy and power, broadband, resilience. So if there's a natural disaster or the grid goes down, how do we prepare for that? And also cybersecurity. So those are the 6 buckets that they talked about focusing these funds on. I think we're all kind of hoping we get a little more detailed description on it, and I'll let Dave chime in too, but a little more detail on how do we get it, where is it, and they're still learning the process. They're still building a process. Part of this meeting was for us to give them feedback on direction, communication, how should they go about doing it. Really was, one of the pamphlets or one of the pieces of information they gave us was 247 grant programs that are impacted by this, which is a little overwhelming. Can't stand here before you today and say, well, we got money for this project or that project. It's still in a discovery mode. They'll do some regional meetings. It's one of the things that was shared back to them is more information. They have what they call a hub group, and that'll kind of be an information flow group that we can contact. They've got a website that you can communicate through and those types of things. But it really is pretty overwhelming. And just to your discussion about consultant for ARPA funds, probably going to need some kind of staffing or support for management of these funds as we look at moving forward with it. The other big emphasis was on partnerships. We've just had some brainstorming sessions and we haven't had a chance to talk to Derek yet, but, you know, are there projects that the regional counties, so we may talk about that at the economic development group we're having, thanks to you, Don, I think next week in Paola, and see what synergies there might be from a regional standpoint. Also talked about, well, are there things that the city of Ottawa could partner with the other cities in the county? So we'll continue to explore those options as we learn more about this grant program. The other thing is it takes a tremendous amount of work up front because, especially on the federal side, which is the grants, you've got to have a lot done in advance, just like you've been doing on some highway projects and things like that, before you even apply, because the window for these is basically 60 days. They'll announce it, you have 60 days to apply. So you got to have a lot of your engineering and preliminary work already done. So it's something I'm sure we'll be back in front of you asking for direction. But just wanted you to know it was a good meeting. It was very well attended, big crowd. And I'll let David fill in the blanks, which I'm sure I left a lot.
Actually, you covered it very well. There were about 650 folks there with Paul and I from all over the state of Kansas. The folks that have put this summit together are made up of Department of Transportation and Department of Commerce folks. The KDOT secretary is kind of heading this up. So they are at the beginning stages of assembling information and figuring out how they can help all of us navigate these kind of uncharted waters, if you will. There's a lot of money available through the formula funds, which are existing programs. Our off-system bridge program, for example, is a funding mechanism that is going to get an infusion of additional dollars. And so there are programs like that that are going to take advantage and have these dollars. But then there's that 40% that is hanging out there. Those are federal dollars, grant dollars that we can go for. But a lot of the things that the state does for us, you know, right now, when there's federal dollars involved in a project, the state handles all of that. The state is not going to be in that line, in that chain of command, if we go after these federal dollars. So what that means, and Paul alluded to this, all the upfront work to do these projects, things like the supporting studies for these things and documentation, all have to be submitted, have to be ready to go whenever you're ready to submit your application in that 2-month window. These include some of you that were around during the Proximity Park project might remember the NEPA environmental study that we had to do. I'm pretty certain that we had to do one of those for that project. That is a part of the application process if we go after dollars from the grant side of things. Benefit cost analysis, all of those things, plus others. And these applications have to, you're not just telling about the project, but you've got to talk about how it's going to impact safety, environmental sustainability, quality of life, economic competitiveness, opportunity, innovation, and a whole slew of other things. These all have to be prepared and ready to go whenever you start filling out the application. It's not, okay, the window's open, so now we can gather all this. We have to be ahead of the game. And so that's going to take some effort on our part to be able to do that. But again, I'm not sure there's ever been this much money in the system for communities such as ours to be able to go after. And so we haven't had a chance to visit with Derek just yet, but I have already, of the 247 new and existing formula and grant programs, they gave us a list with a little bit of information. It amounts to a spreadsheet with basic details. And so I've already, I've already kind of gone through there. I've identified a few that look promising and have started, very, very early in the process, but I've started looking at that. I've only spent a couple hours on it to date, so it's hard for me to go into much more detail than that, but I'm not sure we want to sit on the sidelines and watch this money go to other places, but at the same time, it's going to be a challenge for us to access these dollars. And I also think that there was and Paul mentioned this also, there was a very big emphasis on taking a regional approach to projects. Those are going to be viewed more favorably whenever you get to the selection. And so we'll really need to pay attention to that and see how our needs and maybe some of our neighbors are similar, and if we can bundle those and go forward. So it's going to be daunting, but could potentially be very worthwhile.
I think that I need to sit down with Paul and David, and we need to have a discussion. I will tell you, having worked intimately with the state through the CARES Act process, yes, you have to act, but you also have to have patience, because you can waste a lot of time thinking that this is how you're going to do this, and then it turns out that's not, and that's time and money wasted. I think what we'll do is we'll sit down and identify projects, identify potential partnerships. That to me is step one. Like, what do we want to do? We will bring those to you. I will talk with them about, okay, what are the potential benefits? How much money are we talking about? Is it worth? Do we talk to Widow Bryan's? Do you help us with this? What cost does that look like? The issue there is we don't have a pot of money. Like, we'll pay Widow Bryan's ARPA funds for their ARPA consultations. We don't have transportation funds that we can pay them with, so that's county general fund dollars we would potentially have to use. I'm not against it. I mean, David has a job, and I don't expect him. Paul has a job. I don't expect these two to quarterback all of it, but I think we have to identify projects, then we have to do our own cost-benefit analysis, try to figure out the procedure. What do we gain by bringing a consultant in? How much does that cost? And we'll do all of that over the next, I don't know what kind of timeline on the 60-day window. Is that 60-day, does that coming this fall? Do we know that?
5 years.
Yeah, so they have, some of these programs they've already issued the notice for the programs for 2022. There will be, next year, these same programs will be available for the $23, but it is a 5-year program. The application process if we do all the work and we're ready to submit an application, by the time that we submit the application and are awarded, could be as much as 6 months to a year. By the time you get the notification and work through the contracts with the feds. So that is a very long process, but you're absolutely right. We have to be methodical in this and not forge ahead too quickly. We do need to be diligent about taking those steps forward so that we have a good plan and know what we're doing.
Paul, do you want to talk about Panasonic at all before you?
Sure. Of course, you heard the news that DeSoto and the state of Kansas are landing the mega deal, the Panasonic plant, which is creating batteries for Tesla, I believe. And those will be shipped from there down to Texas. So they'll come right down I-35 and up I-35 past us. But that plant itself is expected to create 4,000 jobs just itself, and then the peripheral impact is another 4,000 jobs in our region. We also anticipate a number of ancillary manufacturers and plants that support Panasonic to locate in the region. And that's where I'm optimistic that maybe we can get one of those in Proximity Park. We've got some conversations with Topeka coming up on that very topic. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to be in the ballgame for at least a shot at something. So that's exciting. It is going to be something that all of us in the region are going to have to take a good look at a number of things, and this could be relative to the infrastructure, but that kind of influx is going to impact, again, housing, childcare, those types of issues, but also it's going to impact our roads and infrastructure along those lines. You know, how many more truck stops are going to populate up and down I-35? And so we're going to have to really kind of think regionally on that as well as far as the impact. It's going to be substantial. It's a great opportunity for Franklin County. We just need to think again and plan strategically, how do we want to benefit from it? But there'll certainly be some economic incentives and or opportunities for us as a community to benefit from that. That's a major, major win for the state of Kansas, obviously. It could be a very big win for Franklin County and all the communities, specifically Wellsville and Ottawa, again, coming up and down the interstate, but also some of the other communities. So I'm real excited about the opportunity.
And you talk about, I think it's huge. You talk about, this may be a plant for Tesla, but you talk about the ancillary plants.
Right.
You know, the day that Ford started making electric F-150s. Ford makes electric, their flagship model, they make an electric version. Like, I think electric vehicles are here to stay. And the components that go into a Tesla battery are gonna be similar to the components that go into a Ford battery. So Tesla's here, these ancillary plants are gonna have to pop up somewhere. Well, what's gonna come after that? If the ancillary plants are all here, then why wouldn't Ford be smart to say, well, we're gonna put a battery plant right there in Kansas because all of the components that go into our batteries are right there. Like, I think it's huge. So that's to say nothing of the truck stops, of all of the other stuff, just the battery related opportunities that are now gonna be here. I think it's huge. I think it's the biggest news we've gotten regarding Proximity Park, or at least potentially. So.
Yeah, I concur 100%. And I think on the flip side of that, we've got to be ready to support our existing industry and protect their workforce because, 4,000 jobs there and around can impact, we're already in a tight labor market. So we certainly want to be sensitive to the labor market for our existing industry and how do we protect them and how do we support that so that they don't suffer as a result of some of this growth in the short term. I think we'll see a big growth in population as a result of this, but not, that'll take some time. We don't have the housing for them right now. So, but it's very exciting. It's a great opportunity for our community. And like I said, it really gets Proximity Park back up to the top of the list with some companies. So very excited about that.
Somebody said yesterday that where they're gonna put that plant, there's like 3,000 acres there, and so, why couldn't those things go there? Except for we have roads and all of our utilities, and we're ready to go, where they would have to start, from scratch, so we're way ahead.
Yeah, we're very well positioned, so I'm excited about that, yeah. Other questions? Before I sit down, I want to lift up Dustin. I know I'm not a formal county employee, but he was so great to work with. I needed a new computer. My laptop took 45 minutes literally to boot up every morning. And so Dustin helped me get the right computer and got it in, and I can get to work within a minute of getting here. And, I'm not very tech savvy, so when I change a laptop, I always fear what I'm going to screw up or mess, and didn't have any of those issues. And I just want to thank Dustin and compliment him. He just does a phenomenal job. And again, I'm not a county employee, but I benefit greatly from this relationship and just want to express my appreciation. So thank you.
Paul, I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. Dustin, did you invoice him for your time? Okay, thanks.
I've got more comments about Derek next week.
Okay, let's continue around the room. Amy, do you got anything else? How about that,
Sarah, you have anything?
Jeff?
Good morning. I want to update the board on a couple things. Earlier this year, the board authorized us to purchase a transport van using ARPA funds. So I wanted to, we don't have it in yet. I thought it was going to be in already, should have been, but they've had some delays. But I wanted to update you with the miles that we have as far as with transports so far this year. From January to June, we have driven 11,710 miles doing inmate transports. And last year, in that same time frame, we had 9,056. So I think part of that is because the courts are back up and operating and they have more things going on there. So there is more, there's just more road time with that. Also, our jail shower project starts today. It actually started real early yesterday morning, about 2 o'clock. Several of us were at the jail to help clear out that area. We have 18 inmates that we had to find new housing for. So Johnson County Sheriff's Office helped us out. They have a transport bus where we could just make one trip. And so they sent a couple people down and allowed us to use their bus and their assistance so that we could make one trip. So we did that yesterday at 2 o'clock in the morning. So we were dragging pretty good by the end of the day. But that project is actually starting today. They've planned it out for up to 2 weeks is what it may take. As part of this project, there are some plumbing issues and things that they want to make sure that those are addressed before we get those the new shower inserts in. They're working with maintenance on that. So Brandon Sands has been down there working with our contractors on that as well to make sure we can get that project done. So that's pretty exciting. It was something that really needed to be done. And again, that's being paid for with funds out of our jail trust. That's how that's working. Last week, I had the honor of being a part of a group called the All Sheriffs Authority. It is a group of 15 sheriffs from across the country that the Department of Justice pulls together to have a meeting and to discuss trends in our industry and some of the issues that may be presenting themselves. The idea this year was to talk about corrections staff and staff development and some of those needs there. Some of the things that have come out of this organization, out of this meeting in the past, is that one of the primary people part of this is the Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, and that's where a lot of our grants come from. And so this gives them an idea what the needs are that are out here on the ground level with corrections, and so that they can kind of know where they need to focus some of those funds. We explained to them what some of the hurdles are in obtaining their funds and for participating in some of their programs, so that maybe they can do some things on their end to kind of remove some of those problems. We work closely, one of the other groups as part of this is the National Institute of Corrections. We do work pretty closely with them. They provide a lot of really good training and some resources. One of the big things that came up with this is the fact that we have a lot of smaller agencies, much smaller than ours. Lots of times they just don't know what it is they don't know. So we need to, we talked about ideas of how we can get the word out to more agencies and organizations across the country. So what is available out there so that nobody's having to reinvent the wheel. So again, it was I was honored to participate in it. Department of Justice picks up the tab, and so they paid for part of it already, and they're reimbursing for the other parts. So no expense to the county on that. When I got back Friday night, I immediately went to the fair, so we had a pretty good fair this last week. It was warm. And I think Christie's staff, they earned their money during the bull riding event Friday night. So it was pretty busy, but overall, it was a pretty good, we did have a pretty good fair. And the last thing I want to mention, and Paul Bean is here, he's part of our Community Advisory Board, which we established here a few years back. And right now, our advisory board, we're going through our process with updating our policies. And the feedback that we get from our advisory board is vital to us to make sure that we are doing things the way that the public would like for us to do. And so I want to just say thank you publicly to our advisory board. Theirs is more than just coming to a meeting once or twice a year. They're reviewing our policies for us, giving us feedback on what they like, what they don't like, and so we're able to make those adjustments. And we're trying to work in partnership with them so that we can provide, a more professional and a better service to the public that we serve. So with that, I'd answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. David, you gave us a PowerPoint deal. Have you already gone through it?
So just real quick, what I provided you was the printout of the PowerPoint that the Trans Systems folks went through on Monday afternoon. We had, as part of the local road safety plan, that project, the consultants presented the safety workshop, and we had a handful of county stakeholders participate in that program. They went through the background and purpose behind the local road safety plan, which is to reduce fatalities and serious injuries on public roads. They want to reduce that number by half over a 20-year period ending in 2029. So the study in Franklin County covered 248 county miles. That is all of our paved roads with speed limits over 35 miles an hour, plus all of our gravel roads that are considered major collectors, which are FAS routes. So it's a pretty good cross-section of roads in the county. It also includes 330 intersections, 125 curbs as a part of that as well. So they have analyzed our crash data from the years 2016 to 2020 over those miles that are included in the study. In that period, there were 440 accidents, reported accidents. There may be others that weren't reported, with 22 fatalities or serious injuries. They mapped all of that, and this fall, once they get done with the study, they will have they showed us a completed study, so there will be a lot of information. They will also provide us a kind of a top 10 list of potential projects that they feel like, based on the data, would benefit us. Going through this project also allows us to apply for high-risk rural road funding through KDOT, and that's really where I'm anticipating looking first for Old 50 funds to build that construction. So we were there for a couple, two or three hours. They went through it. It was a lot of good information. They talked about rumble strips and other types of signage and those sorts of things to help us. We're actually in really good shape as far as signage, so we'll look for some of those other items as time goes on here. One of the interesting things that you'll see in there is, through all of the studies that they've done, almost 3/4 of the accidents and 2/3 of the fatalities and serious injuries occurred on straight roads between intersections. That has been true in every scenario, and it's true for Franklin County as well. And so it's not, we have some curves and those sorts of things that pose issues, but it's the straightaways where folks tend to have trouble. And And so you can imagine, they didn't really go into detail on what causes that, but obviously inattentive driving is a big factor in those accidents. So look for later this year, maybe we'll do a study session where we'll present the entire book and go through it at a little more detail then. And that's all I have, unless you have other questions.
It looks pretty comprehensive
Yeah.
study.
No, it was very well presented and provided us, we had opportunity to provide input to them, telling them where, we think that we have issues, and so they noted that, and they will take a closer look at those. And so that was the nice thing about having multiple people there. We all brought different problem areas to light, and so they were able to map that, and it'll show up in the final report.
Did they happen to mention if the high-risk rural road program's getting more money because of the federal dollars, if they're adding any?
I'm not sure that, they didn't mention that, and I'm trying to recall in some of the literature that I've read if that is part of it. And I honestly, I can't recall. I've looked at so many.
I know the federal, they put, but then sometimes what the state gets, then they go back and
Right.
do their own programs.
Yes, and so lots of state programs are getting additional dollars because of this. And so I wouldn't be shocked, but I don't know the answer for sure.
How about the bridge program that we
Absolutely.
participated in? It is? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely it is. And there's federal grants specifically for bridges as well. And so that's some of the other things I'm looking at.
Is there anything for less than bridges? Box culverts,
Yes.
the draining structures that, more than a culvert, but less than a bridge?
Yeah,
that we-
most of those are centered around aquatic passage.
Okay.
And so we have some of those that it would be appropriate. But, so there is an avenue there if we want to look at it.
Obviously, by statute, we have to biannually inspect our bridges, but there's nothing for is there any kind of inventory system, or do we have any idea about the condition of our, I don't know, less than bridges, draining structures,
yeah,
I guess you'd call them?
That is one of the objectives that I'm hoping that we will accomplish once we have this new software. It will have the ability for us to input that information, and we will be doing those inspections. Right now, how it occurs is spot checks. When we've got our blade operators, they're usually the first ones to notice something, and then we target our inspection in that manner. But I do not have a complete list of every structure under 20 feet long in our county. And there are literally thousands of them, I would imagine.
All right.
Hey, Roy, before you segue to Janet, David brought up software, and I neglected to mention this first go around. Is there anything else that the five of you would like to see? I know you wanted to see a more thorough breakdown of the programs and of the service fees. We provided that. I will tell you, those numbers were in the budget that Janet presented to you. So they're built into those numbers. I'm inclined to have that in front of you next week, or the week after. I just want to make sure that there's nothing else you're waiting to see.
For me, I've got to rely on our tech people on that software stuff, because they're the ones that are gonna have to use it.
Yeah.
and Stuff, so.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, Roy. I agree. I mean, our end users are the ones that are driving this, and I think we've got a lot of good input from them, so. Okay, thanks.
Okay, Janet, is anything going on in your office?
Nothing at all. Just a couple of things. Today is the last day for taxing entities to notify me of their intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate. of the taxing entities that are in our county that are responsible for filing their budget with me. I have only 3 of them that I have not heard from, and I've reached out to them. I expect that, I've been in contact with 2 of those, and while I haven't got their budget and they haven't committed to exceeding, they have told me they will get me that by today. So I am aware of most of them. Only 1 have I not heard from at all. So really great job by all of our taxing entities getting the information in. So hopefully we're going to have a smooth transition to the notices. And it's been good working with our vendor so far that's going to be handling printing our statements. So that's going to be happening by the end of the week. So just doing all our double checks on all of those budgets to make sure everything's there that we need. Early voting started on Monday, and we've had a really great turnout. The first 2 days, we had 70 each day, which is an incredibly high number for a primary election. But, you know, we have a issue on the ballot that a lot of people are really concerned about. I believe we sent out over 500 advance ballots by mail and already got quite a few of those back either in the mail or our drop box out front. And just so everyone knows, we have that drop box out front. We do a 2-person check on that box every day. So we make sure that 2 people are counting the number that come out of there. So we're verifying all of that information. And then we run all of our normal checks that we would do on any advance ballot when it gets in the office, logging it in to make sure it's accounted for and checking signatures and all of that stuff. So I know a lot of people are concerned about the safety and security of advance ballots, but I'd be happy to talk to anyone about that individually if you have concerns about that, about what we're doing. So advanced voting's going really good. So we're just now getting ready for our election worker trainings that are coming up and getting all of our poll workers set for election day. So lots going on.
Is there any questions coming up routinely that you have to call Topeka about?
No, most things we can handle ourselves. We're still trying to get through. We had a huge influx of voter registrations right at the very end. So, you know, just have a one-off question occasionally that we escalate up to the state level. But most of the things we can handle ourselves or resolve with the voter themselves. So either by email or by phone. So I'm just working to get everyone's registrations completed and the advance ballot forms that we have, get those out the door and make sure that we're meeting the needs of the voter. We did have our first late night last night till 7. We'll have a late night on Thursday till 7 this week. We'll have 2 next week on Monday and Wednesday. And Saturday, the 30th, will be open 9 to 1. So there's plenty of extra hours to vote early.
Just quickly, it's kind of not the way we do things, but David Brown brought it up. Could you say anything about that? About
I think Dustin will come up and tell you
okay.
about that.
I think I've seen the advertisements on TV about people stealing your property or your house or stuff like that.
And I don't know exactly what that is, but I'm guessing the brochure being from Miami County is probably exactly what I'm going to talk about with the software solution that we've been working on. Derek just talked about. A piece of that is with Fiddlers for the Registered Deeds Office, and there is a property fraud alert capability in that citizens would be able to sign up with either their name or their address and then get any notifications to the changes that were being made to those deeds or to any of those records. So Miami County is running Fiddler software. That's why I assume that could be exactly what it is. But regardless, in the proposals that we're looking to bring to you next week, the Fiddler technologies or the Fiddler software solutions that we're bringing for the Registered Deeds Office does include a property fraud alert system that citizens can sign up for.
And he said you have to sign up for it, but at least in Miami County, there's no charge to the taxpayer. It's just,
correct.
If your name's on there, then you'll just be notified.
Correct. There's some other benefits that the Fiddler software also allows, and I can talk about those some more next week. I really was going to leave those to Sue to decide whether they were programs she wanted to implement or not. But I believe that is one that will get implemented regardless, because I do see where that could have a lot of
How
appeal.
hard would it be just to send a notice out, even if you aren't signed up, just send a notice out to anybody who has a lien against their property?
I'd probably have to have
Is there a
I'd
lot
probably
of
have to
those?
have that conversation with our existing software vendors, with Fiddler and with Sue to find out what the possibilities are there.
Most of our taxpayers, we don't have any contact information for other than an address. So that's something that we're hoping to start collecting from people, is their email address. For the primary reason for that is in the new revenue neutral statutes, there is a provision for emailing people statements and correspondence regarding their property. So we do hope to start collecting email addresses from people where we would be able to contact them some other way other than regular US mail. So these things are all in motion and starting. The treasurer did start collecting email contacts for tax statements only last year. So she is able to email them in some instances. So, but we're working on collecting those things and being able to notify our taxpayers better.
And I can bring you more information about the property fraud alert if you'd like, or I can send that over to your email if you like. But that's a program that is included in the Fiddler software package that we're looking to present to you next week.
Thank you for updating that.
Okay.
Okay, commissioners, Don?
Yeah, again, I don't have a lot, but tomorrow Dave and I will be going to Burlington to the solid waste quarterly meeting. Got quite a few things down there to discuss and go through. And Paul, but I think their deal's tomorrow. Yeah, okay. Because I've been known to miss those kinds of things. It is tomorrow in Paola. I'm going to run from Burlington and be over there for the luncheon, and RC&D is sponsoring that over there. And I think it's been a real benefit, and all the people in different counties that's taken part in it has taken a real interest in it. And they've even intertwined a couple of the other counties outside of our area to join in too. So I think it's been a real good deal that way. So, and I agree with 100%. It's hard to believe, but down the intersection of Rock Creek and Oregon Road, you can see for a half a mile in every direction, no houses, no nothing. There's more accidents right there than there is anywhere from Rental all the way to 59 Highway. My family's been personally in 2 wrecks right there. And a lot of it is, just people don't, it's out, all agriculture. There's a lot of traffic there, more than people realize, but they just don't pay attention to that stop sign there. And that's what most of them happen. And it isn't due to people speeding, I don't think, for the most part through there. It's just from lack of concentration.
It's a combination of those two.
Yeah, but I know personally, my family's been 2 wrecks there, and I know there's been a lot more there, so. That's all I got.
On Thursday, I had our first meeting with the 4th District Judicial Nominating Commission concerning the new magistrate in Coffee County. And applications are now open, and I think they have till like the 2nd or the 3rd of August to get those in. Anybody's interested? And a magistrate judge, you do not have to have a law degree, so if you think you want to be a judge in Coffee County. And then we're going to have 2 more meetings in August, one to go through the applications, and then the second meeting to actually have interviews with the applicators. And so we'll have a new judge by the end of August. And then the other meeting I had was on Friday. We had our first in-person Neighborhood Revitalization Committee meeting on Friday since COVID. So, and I think there were 10 new properties that we reviewed. And the only other thing is last week, the new suicide prevention hotline is now in effect. So it's 988. So if you know anybody that needs to talk to somebody, 988. and they'll be able to talk to somebody. And that's statewide. So that's all I have.
The area agency on aging's kind of reaching the end of the time frame to spend some of those federal dollars that came down, and by and large, they're spending them on equipment replacement, maintenance, things that, it's a good deal because ultimately a lot of those would have, they're above and beyond costs, right? So there's a good chance that the counties would have been asked to maybe participate in those eventually. Large HVAC replacements, things like that, so. Spending them well, and it'll, you know, a roundabout way kind of benefit the taxpayers of our county too, so they're not being wasted and put to good use. So, but that's all I have to add there.
I just went to the Franklin County Fair, had a good barbecue and a good week of fair events, so. Didn't go to the demolition derby, but I imagine it was pretty good too. And it sounds like, maybe the bull riding was the most dangerous, I don't know. Anyway, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.